If you've been struggling to get a good night's sleep lately, then this episode is most definitely for you.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron and Juwan, and you're listening to Wellness for Real People. This show is for people who are on the go, busy, and looking for ways to live their best lives. We focus on wellness topics in mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep, and share quick, actionable tactics to improve your health and wellness. We're not perfect, but we're trying to get a little better each day. Let's grow on this journey together.
Today, we're talking about an article from UC Health. It's titled Need Help Sleeping Better? Good news, there's some simple tips to help improve your sleep. And there's an expert here, Dr. Katherine Green, who offers some great, very simple, practical, and profound tips and insights for getting quality sleep. So, welcome back to another episode of Wellness for Real People. My name is Juwan. Here are my co host, Aaron. And we're going to dive into this article about sleep, all things sleep. Before we get into some of the specifics, Aaron, were there any big takeaways that you have from reading through the article?
No, it's a dense article. There's a lot of good content here. We'll link to it in the show notes for you all afterwards. One thing that was really great was it reinforces some of the stuff that we've spoken to previously, but also just keeps, reminding us of things that we need to always do and behaviors that we need to keep addressing, and then provides links to a ton of other great resources as well, too, to help with sleep. So this one was really excellent. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were just talking a little bit offline before we started recording this idea of like, it's good to preach to the choir sometimes. Even if your sleep is doing pretty well lately, it's easy to just get distracted and get off track with these things. So just hearing it again, helps me personally keep these things in mind and keep myself in check with what I know I need to be doing so that I can continue to take care of myself as best as I can. So the article starts off with really, really quickly, what are the top 5 simple tips to help you get better sleep? She said, number one is establish a routine and stay consistent. So in general, try to go to bed and wake up about the same time every day, even on the weekends. Number two, a little bit surprising, has nothing really to do with sleep, you might think, but it's very important. And number two is exercise regularly. Number three, watch your caffeine intake and try to avoid caffeine after noon. Number four, unplug your devices at least 30 minutes before your bedtime. That blue light from your devices tends to stimulate us to stay awake. And number five was get outside and expose yourself to sunlight every day. You'll sleep better if you have a healthy internal body clock, and exposing yourself to sunlight helps prepare your brain to sleep at the appropriate time. So if you take nothing else from this article and all the other tips that we're about to share with you, if you can just remember even just one of those 5 tips, I think it'll help your sleep.
Yeah. And then we'll just quickly breeze over some of these other points in terms of how important sleep is. And the article goes into why having good sleep is so important. There's growing evidence that showcases that sleep quality and quantity have far-reaching effects, from everything to your energy levels, your ability to perform on your job, your mood. People who are less likely, or people who don't get enough sleep, can be more irritable and prone to depression and anxiety. And if you could imagine, that's a compounding effect at that point. Also, a lack of sleep has been shown to affect your system. It affects systems that regulate your metabolism. It could cause increased predisposition to things like obesity and diabetes, and even long-term cardiovascular health effects, like a risk of hypertension, strokes, and heart attacks. So that's just quickly shows that getting sleep is so important. I'm going to jump around just a little bit down to one of these other points that it's kind of a thing that we are getting away from these days, but someone asked a question, can some people get by with as little as 4 hours of sleep a night? And the affirmative answer from the author is no. Adults need about 7 hours of sleep per night. Sometimes you'll need a little bit more depending on your body type, or around 7 is good. But in the past, there was this notion of a badge of honor, work hard, sleep little, grind it out, but the studies have shown, all the studies align to this fact that the health effects are negative. If you're getting fewer than 7 hours of sleep, you're going to see some impact there. So wanted to make sure we call that out as we share these tips.
Great point. One thing that jumped out to me in this article, and something that happens to me from time to time, is what if I wake up in the middle of the night?
Mm, yeah.
Right? What's the best tip for that? And the doctor says avoid reaching for your phone, turning on the TV, or working on your laptop. Because all that's going to do is just get your brain fired up, more stimulated, overstimulated, and make it more difficult to go fall back asleep. She also mentions, don't get up and eat or exercise or clean or do any activity that stimulates you to be more awake. So if you're awake and in bed for more than 20 minutes, what should you do? So you just can, continue just kind of tossing and turning and spiraling in your thoughts, or what, how can we actually, get some relief and fall back asleep? She says, avoid the tossing and turning because you'll just get more frustrated. You may
Mm-hmm.
get out of bed and do something calming, like reading or coloring or doing a sudoku. I don't know, however you pronounce that.
Yeah, you got
Puzzle,
it.
easy crossword puzzle, or try a mindfulness app, and or some breathing techniques, along with some things like white noise or calming music that can be helpful to just kind of, reset, lower your breathing rate and your heart rate, and get you back to sleep.
Yeah, and then with the better sleep, the things that we talked about a little bit earlier, but making sure your bedroom is cool and dark, lowering your body temperature at night so you can sleep better. Saving your bed for sleep and sexual activity is important. That way, like working in bed, playing bed, watching TV in bed, all these things kind of disassociate you with what the bed is actually for, and it can make it harder to fall asleep in the future if you have those bad habits, or make it easier for you to just pick up the remote if you have a TV in your room and just turn on the TV and disrupt your sleep. And then also reducing alcohol and caffeine consumption will improve that quality of sleep.
Yeah. One thing that I found it interesting, or one question that was asked is, does poor sleep affect weight gain? As we get older, that's something we tend to be a little bit more mindful of, and I think most of us would love to lose a few pounds. So I was very curious about this question. It says, will I lose weight if I get better sleep? She says the relationship between poor sleep and weight gain is complex. It's probably not one thing that ties the two together. But what we do know is that your metabolism, just like your sleep cycle and so many other things in your body, is on a 24-hour circadian rhythm. So just like you have, sleep and wakefulness hormones that fluctuate throughout the day, so does your metabolism. And when you have disrupted sleep, inefficient sleep, what we see is that all of those hormones that regulate your metabolism also start to get out of whack. So she says, when we have insufficient sleep or underlying issues like sleep apnea, we do know that there's an increased resistance to weight loss efforts. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're not well rested, you may have a tougher time losing weight, and that may in part be related to feeling exhausted and having lower energy levels. That certainly happens to me when I get a bad night's sleep. I'm just not in the mood to actually get up and be active,
Yeah.
right? And so then I'm like tend to be more sedentary and lethargic, and then you kind of get into that negative spiral and cycle, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to kind of pull myself out of that. But she says, when we can sleep better, we should be able to lose weight more easily. It's not going to be automatic, and unfortunately, the pounds aren't just going to melt off magically. But losing weight still requires us to cut calories and increase physical activity. But if we can get quality sleep, it will certainly help.
Yeah. And then just this one was kind of interesting when I was reading this. Something that we hadn't really talked about before was that exposure to the sun and getting out and getting that fresh air, that daylight. Well, the article says that morning light exposure is one of the things that really drive wake promoting hormones in our body. So it can help you be awake during the day and then readier to fall asleep at night. But if you have trouble, like you said, if you're feeling lethargic or groggy or whatever in the morning, try to get out for a walk or a run. And just getting out there in that light has been shown to be very beneficial and making sure that you're actually awake and those wake promoting hormones are in effect during the morning hours. And then as they dissipate throughout the day, you'll be a little bit more ready to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, there's one other thing too I thought was interesting about this topic of like melatonin,
Hmm.
if you take it as a supplement. And so, of course, you want to check with your health team on this to take a grain of salt. But the article says that in general, melatonin is safe, although data on supplements is limited since they're not regulated like other medications. But your body is kind of like already producing that naturally. So, you have to kind of judge that for yourself. It's something that I've taken before. It kind of makes me feel a little bit groggy. It's like maybe I took too much of it or I didn't need it or there was some other sleep issues. But, something to think about too in the article where it says that it's like there's not a clear like recommendation, like definitely do it or don't do it. It's kind of just more so along the way of like, kind of how you feel. But there are very few large studies on long term side effects or risks. So I thought that was interesting, something I want to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I've taken melatonin in the past, and I don't like how it affects my body. At least the dosage that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I felt really sluggish and groggy, and so I personally, tried my best to do it as natural as possible way.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly respect if other folks, take it and find it to be helpful. It's good to, like you mentioned in this article, from the doctor pointed out that it tends to be a very safe supplement if you had to pick one. So I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
I thought it was helpful too. And then my last one that I have is just around naps. Are naps healthy? Sometimes I love a good nap, man, especially with kids. It's like, they've been wearing you out all day, and it's like, oh man, I just want to just relax and take a nap. But it says short naps between 10 and 30 minutes can be great, but the article recommends against really long naps. They say strategic napping is something that can be very helpful in improving your productivity and focus. There's been some good studies around that, but napping too long can leave you feeling groggy and disrupt healthy sleep patterns. So, if you want to take a nap and need that, because you definitely might need that, try to set an alarm for 30 minutes max to make sure that you're not having a longer detrimental effect on your sleep habits. But naps can definitely be healthy for productivity and focus, which I thought was great. And I've heard athletes that take naps, like a lot of high performing athletes will do this as well too. And obviously they're using their body on an extreme level, but even for regular people, it can be very helpful for productivity.
Yeah. The last couple of points that I wanted to bring out is more around, partners, right? And I thought this was interesting. The question was asked, if my partner snores a lot, could they have sleep apnea? And the answer from the doctor is yes. Most people who snore have no idea that they're actually snoring. And snoring can be a sign of sleep apnea. So Dr. Green encourages people to talk openly with their partners and seek help if necessary. I think that's really, really important to just, be aware and, have those conversations with with your partner, because it could make a big difference. It could fundamentally it could save their life,
Yeah,
if you're not aware of
seriously.
it. And we've talked in the past and
Yeah.
read a lot about, the impact and effects long term of sleep apnea. And so, if anytime we can, recognize it, diagnose it, and get the right treatment, it can make a tremendous difference. So I thought that was important and powerful. And the last piece doesn't really apply to me personally, but certainly want to be aware of, as my partner, or you may have a partner, or it may affect, if you're listening to this. It talks about how does menopause affect sleep. So it says hormonal changes and hot flashes can disrupt sleep, and there's a huge increase in sleep apnea among women around the time of menopause, which is an interesting phenomenon that they're starting to realize in some of these studies. She says, whereas middle-aged men are about 4 times as likely to have sleep apnea as women, after menopause, we see that incidence is actually 1 to 1. So some of the insomnia that can come along with menopause may actually be a symptom of sleep apnea. So
That's
again,
interesting.
whether you're noticing some changes in your own life, or your partner, or significant other, or someone you really care about, just some things to be aware of, keep an eye out on, and bring up, so we can all help each other be as healthy and get as good sleep as possible.
Yeah, and like a lot of times too, you can do some of these sleep apnea tests at home, and you don't have to go through like an extreme kind of like environment to do all these tests. But getting started somewhere there, just asking your healthcare provider about like how can I do a sleep test or a sleep study at home, and just to get started is like a really easy lift, and something that you can get for relatively low cost to no cost.
Yeah, great. So, there's some great tips in this article. We'll link to it in the show notes, but I hope you found some of these ideas helpful for you as it relates to getting quality sleep. And that's the foundation of great health, right? We talk about a lot on our show, particularly you know, sleep, diet, exercise, and mindfulness as being those core pillars that are really, really important and helpful for having a long, healthy life. And so I hope that this article contributes to that for you. We'll be back with another episode of Wellness for Real People. And in the meantime, take care.